Islam, everybody.
Islam.
I'd like to request the permission of my elders to speak.
Right.
All right. Today we're going to have a guest speaker, my man Rahs. He's going to talk a little bit about crystals, mountain energy, possibly some astrology. And I know Rahs now for probably about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. When I first met him, it was through astrology. I asked him to do an astrological chart for me, being my natal chart and my transit chart. That was in July of 2012 when he did the chart. And as he did my transit chart, in the 8th house, he told me that I had Uranus set in that house. That's where it was when I was born. And coming around, it was going to be Saturn. And it was going to be in conjunction, meaning it was going to be lined up with Uranus in that 8th house. The 8th house, the house of death, help me out, death, new beginnings, karmic death, the whole nine. It was, so basically with Saturn in conjunction with Uranus in that 8th house wasn't good for me. So what he told me was, somewhere around November, you're going to have these two planets lined up, and it's going to stay lined up somewhere until around February. So I'm like, so what he said was, you need to be extremely careful. He said, it's not a possibility, there's a probability that something may happen to you. Accident, hospitalization, maybe jail, even death. What he said was, if your wife turns off the lights and you need to go downstairs and get something, turn the light on. She may have left something on the floor. You might not know, with it being dark. I walked down the steps and tripped and broke my neck. Anything. So, right before those planets got in conjunction, I went back and saw them again. That was in November of 12 for another transit chart. Just to reiterate everything that we went over in July, and just to, get a feeling of, all right, what's coming, what may come. So cool. That was in November. Between November and February, a whole lot of things happened. I have a tractor trailer. I had more problems with my truck in November and December than you could imagine. It caused me a lot of fiat, back and forth, a lot of frustration, a lot of aggravation. So, everything going on with the truck, that means I'm not driving. Right. That's one. I attempted to take a trip to the Dominican Republic, which means I either had to cruise or I had to fly. It didn't happen. These two. I tried to make a trip to Miami. That fell through the day before we were supposed to leave. That's free. So, I'm kind of still thinking about it, but not much. So, we're going through life and every day. December 26, 2012, I get up to go to work. And when I left, it looked like that outside. The sun was shining, everything was all good. Somewhere around 2:30, 3 o'clock, it started to snow. So I said, cool, snow, I'm out of here. Because the prior year, on my birthday, January 26, 2011, I actually had an accident and totaled my truck in the snow. So when I saw the snow, I said, all right, cool, I'm out of here, I'm going home. I never made it up. I'm still here physically. The truck never made it, I'll put it that way. Headed back in the snow, I'm being as cautious and as careful as I can be. Going downhill and around the curve, the truck just took a jackknife. I told that truck too. So I'm sitting in the truck, and I'm somewhat pissed off, really disappointed, trying to figure out how this happened again. And then I thought about it as I was sitting in the truck, and everybody was banging on the door, asking me if I'm okay. I'm thinking about what Rahs told me. I'm thinking about what he told me. He didn't predict it. The stars did. So I don't know how much y'all delve into astrology, astrological charts and natal charts and things like that. He didn't predict it, he read it. It was there. As it was in my chart, things like that are also in your charts. So if you haven't thought about getting an astrological reading, just give it some thought. Natal chart, transit chart, you'll find out a lot about yourself. You'll learn about yourself through the natal chart. Things that you probably don't understand about yourself, you'll learn through the natal chart. The transit chart tells you what's coming, what's ahead. Also, he has crystals over here. He has books and DVDs. He's going to talk today a little bit about crystals, the energy, healing energies, and the energies that we receive from crystals. All right, so y'all pay attention. And here's my man, Rahs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Bless up, everyone.
Islam.
Yes. And humble, thankful to be in the community today.
Right.
Hope what I share be well received. Before I continue, Elder, do I have permission to proceed?
Yes, receive, brother.
All right, yes, sir. So, thank you for the glowing introduction. You know, it's funny how you see yourself, how others see you. I just see myself really as a humble servant, obedient servant. Just do what I'm told. I listen to spirit and I do what I'm told. You know, so it does have me do a lot of different things. Work with crystals and sacred stone. I do have a new DVD out on the Star Nations. You know, that's a very relevant issue in this time. Nothing I planned on getting into, but again, it's being obedient. And it's an issue that needs to be made more aware in our community. And yeah, we need to know our part in that thing. So working on that. And right, knowing that this is a session on our Moorish heritage, Moorish identity, sovereignty, I did shape what I'm going to share today around that. You know, it's not going to be law or anything on that level, but just what you might think of like some spiritual dimensions of sovereignty. You know, and ultimately that being our relationship to the land. You know, because that is a big part of having that sovereign state, is having that firm relationship to the land. You know? And that goes beyond just having a piece of paper that says you're custodian of a square piece, you know. It really goes to your ancestral connections to different parts of the planet. It goes to the, like, how are we custodians of the earth, you know? Because we do earn our connection to the earth by how we care for it. You know, that's a real thing. And a big part of our history, mystery and prophecy, all in one, as it relates to that, is our connection to the Mounds. And Philadelphia, Amexem, the Napi King, very significant place in terms of the mounds and the mound builders. So we're going to, you know, touch on all those things lightly and hopefully have a reason, you know, not so much just a lecture. But I did want to start with the crystal, because that is kind of what I work with the most. And I want us to expand our perception of crystals as being more than just rocks or stones, right? But in terms of this whole discussion, crystals are actually portable land. Crystals are portable land. They are land that we can transport, we can carry, that we can move with, right? What does distinguish crystals from just rocks, you know, is the fact that they do have energy potential, okay? And that gives crystals an inherent value, not so much an intrinsic value, a value that, you know, just like diamonds tend to have intrinsic value. on De Beers, I want to put this value on it because I want to make this much money, right? Inherent value is, just by its nature, it has value, you know? It has some healing potential. It has some way it's going to make my life better, right? And all of those things are relevant now, but I feel they're going to become particularly relevant as we move forward in the not too distant future, because we all know we're moving towards what is called the cashless society, you know, or as I heard y'all would reference the fiat-less society, right? Where if you don't have the microchip, right? How are you going to exchange? What's going to be your currency? What's going to be your barter? What's going to be your standard of exchange? Right? And as I look towards that future, that potential reality, and look for potential solutions, I see quartz. I see quartz as a viable solution. Why? Number one, because it is portable land, right? It's portable land with inherent value. It is not as rare as like gold and precious metals, which would be very difficult to have in a form of currency. If I get a piece of gold, I'm holding on to that piece of gold. I'm not going to buy a meal with a piece of gold. I'm not going to deal with transportation or something, you know, something what they would call mundane. With a piece of gold, so precious metals, although they are something that we can use as a you know, standard of trade and have it as part of an alternative currency in the event of a cashless fiat society, right? But we need something that's a little more fluid. We need something that's a little more in abundance, but isn't so abundant that it's not going to have any value, right? I see quartz. I see quartz as a viable solution, okay? Quartz is one of the most abundant crystals in the crust of the earth, right? It's found most, like you can, it's my just overstanding, you can go down by the airport and dig a little down and find some Amexem, okay? And, you know, the thing is though is, as with all things, coming out of the earth, there's grades, right? So this is like some A-grade quartz right here. It's translucent, you know. You're not gonna find nothing like that digging down by the airport, right? So then that gives certain land, quartz coming from certain regions, a little more value, you know. But then we also got to factor in the healing potential. That, right, we talk about being able to maintain wellness in this electronic age. We're exposed to so many toxic energies, you know, on top of the toxic substances in our environment. We need something to help us keep our vibration healthy. And we know, I'm sure we all have some metaphysical foundation. We know everything is vibration. everything in creation is vibration. We know that. From the highest frequency traversing the cosmos to the densest form of matter. Ultimately, everything is a vibrational frequency. Right? So our wellness, ultimately, is dependent on our vibrational wellness. You know? That's our frequency is our galactic signature. So are we in harmony with the galaxy, or are we in discord with the galaxy? If we're in harmony, we're going to feel well. If we're in discord, yeah, we're going to feel that need to harmonize. And that is the next value with the mineral nations. You know? So, I had a video of some indigenous from the island of Yak. Anybody familiar with that? There's a community in Micronesia, right? Which is like the Polynesian island, small little island. And this community caught the eye of economists. Economists went, and economists and anthropologists, they went to study these indigenous because they had a currency system of rocks. What was even deeper about them, because it wasn't like rocks like this, where what I'm saying, like, right, we needed it in the form of currency. They would get giant rocks, right? And more or less just assign ownership to them. So not only was the rocks currency, they were also banking institutions, right? And so economists felt if they wanted to really see the basic, primordial root of economics, you know, they could study these people, right? So do y'all want to see a little bit of this scene?
Sure.
Because again, this is just some food for thought as we
Gonna do a lights program.
No, he want to do the lights. He want to do the lights. We're
you
good.
know as we look into this fiat meaning,
Good.
right? So this is the stone. So this is how they only transfer money like once a year,
Yeah, we're good, man.
and it's ceremonial. You know, so all the deposits and withdrawals, this is how it goes down. Okay? And again, so now, and their larger stones, it is a thing kind of like what we were talking about with gold, where they're not giving up the stones for a day's meal or something like that. These are dowries. These are, land grants. Merit the exchanging of the rocks, you know? And what gives the rocks value is that they come from another island. They're very large, very heavy. They have to take small rafts to a whole other island. Balance the rocks on small rafts and then bring them over, right? So the larger the rock, the more perilous the tribe, the more value it has. So, again, I just share that on a level to give food for thought. Plant a seed, spark some visions on Cortez currency. What do y'all think? Let's have some reasoning. Thoughts? Yes, sister.
Islam, bro, you said what you were indicating was not law, okay? What is law? Length, angle, and width, okay? So the angle that you came in on, the width, It's all in the lens, it's still the law, it doesn't matter, you know, you may not call it the law, but it definitely is the law.
Yes, sir. Universal law. Yes, sir. Give thanks for that.
I can see the course has been its intrinsic value as far as its healing properties, as well as using as a legal currency. So it is, these guys are food for thought. Because it might get back down to that as we go along here.
I feel it's going to get down to that.
For sure.
And that's why even we don't want to wait
It's the last moment, right?
until that time to then have to scramble. This is something that many minds should be visioning on.
Right now.
Are you finding that rocks from different regions would have different healing powers?
Yes, right. When we talk about applying the value, right? A lot of things might go into that. One might be the size. One might be the rarity of the type that it is. But then, right, also where it's coming from. Yeah, I think that's, because again, I feel the sacredness of currency. Like you saw, right, their currency exchange, it was ceremony. Using crystals or quartz as currency would give room for sacredness coming back in to using currency. Because it's like, oh, this comes from, right, so this quartz is from Tibet, this is from the Himalayas. We know that's a mystical, sacred space. So that has to be part of the exchange, honoring the sacredness from where it came. Yes, sir. Yes.
How would you be able to determine what region for sure it originated?
That's a very good question. And I think that, again, so not only would working with stones bring a sacredness, but it would also be room for learning about the earth. Because you would need to know right, you need to know the story. How did this, all right, so now this stone is to me. How did it get to me? Where did it come from and how did it get to me? You know? So we would have to keep those traditions either orally, right? But then we would have to inform ourselves just so we're not running, you know, somebody's not running game. You know? So there's a lot of things that need to be visioned out on this. Yes?
Now, the purity of the quartz is essential, and it's as far as the healing properties, the purity of the quartz itself is paramount in its healing properties.
Yeah, usually they would say the clarity, and the perfection of, you know, how all quartz comes to a point or a termination. So the clarity of the stone and the perfection of the termination definitely add to the value. If it's a crystal and it's milky or not translucent, it's not going to have as much value. If the termination has been marred or damaged in any way, it's not going to have as much value. And both of those things do also translate into its healing potential. So crystals that tend to be clearer with perfect or you know, strong terminations, they're going to have more healing potential. Yes. So if there are no more questions, questions on that. I'm just putting that seed of thought out there. All right? Hopefully y'all will water it and it will grow.
Sure enough.
So the next thing I want to share with y'all is actually it's a video of a presentation that I did about this time last year at a what I would consider a historic conference. It was called the Free Your Mind Conference, which occurred downtown. My presentation was on Mounds, sacred mounds, and the mound critters. Being mound critter being those who look to occupy the mounds, to control the spiritual dynamics of the land. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of resonance in the sciences y'all deal with, and then we'll have a little discussion. All right?
Yes.
Greetings to everyone in the house. I want to open by, giving thanks and praise. This is one of the many people that acknowledge the ancestors that are with us today, those remember that God. I want to honor the elders that are present today. Give thanks for your example of wise mind and knowledge. And with your permission, we're going to proceed. But I also want to pick up Free Your Mind team. They've done an awesome job. Thanks for the effort. Thanks for the effort to be a part of this. And hey, I want to thank y'all for supporting those that are working with me to collectively run the humanity. So, yes, I'm last bit and have several projects in the works, one of which is a look at the mystical dimensions of Philadelphia. That's what I think got me to be a part of this. And so my presentation is around that today. It's called Free Your Mind and Your Mind Will Follow. And of course, it's inspired by the Free Your Mind conference, but it's also inspired by one of my favorite musical groups coming up, Together. Wow, somebody got Together shirt on. That's awesome. Yes, sir. But they had an album that I meditated on many years. Free your mind and your eyes will follow. The kingdom of heaven is within. And when I meditate on that, there's a profound truth in that title. And that profound truth is that the subtle informs the dense. So within our reality, the subtler parts of ourselves informs the denser part. So with my mind, that's a subtler part of me. My ass is a denser part. If I free my mind, my ass will follow. But when we think about that in the context of freeing our mind, we got to kind of look at all of the subtler aspects of ourselves, because our emotional body informs our physical body. Our mind, which is subtler than our emotions, informs our emotions. So if I'm going to inform my mind, if I want to impact my mind, I got to work with my spirit, which is the talk about spirit and spirituality, like the good brother Curtis said, there's been a lot of corruption. Religion has corrupted the ideas of spirit and spirituality. Some of us don't even want to deal with that part of ourselves. When we talk about spirit, we're talking about essential stuff, the life force energy that's within us. And that life force energy wants to be connected with the life force energy around us. And we can say, generally speaking, from the human domain, there's 3 realms of spirit we can connect to. One is an ancestral realm. The other is the realm of nature. You know, and that embodies beyond just trees and bird and animal kingdoms. It also embodies the energy of the earth, the ley line grid network of the planet, the magnetic fields that envelop the planet. There's life force and all of that. And as well as the celestial realm. Okay? All of these are realms of spirit that if we want to free our mind, we have to plug in, tap into, connect with those realms. So our indigenous ancestors had a powerful technology that they used to tap into those realms of spirit, all 3 realms simultaneously. And today we call them the Mounds. Mounds are usually sepulchral in nature, meaning that they're burial places. So when we go to the mounds, we can connect with our ancestors. Mounds are also usually built atop the ley line network of the planet. So when we go to the mounds, we tap into the energetic grid of the planet. And mounds are usually aligned with celestial constellations and astrological formations in the heavens. So when we go to the mounds, we connect with that celestial realm as well. As we said, mounds are not just randomly placed. They're connected by a grid of ley lines. And collectively, we'll call this the global mound matrix. Now let's look at one indigenous account of these mounds and what they deal with. A great source to just, if you want a one-stop shop, is the Chilling Bottle, or the Prophecies of the Jaguar, which were chronicled by a Mayan priest in the year 1541. And there is a chapter in the Chilling Bottle called the Mound Builders. And I have emboldened, like, you know, the media information, you know. But they say it took 315 cartoons were going to cite that to construct the mounds. And that it would take 13 cartoons and 6 years to build one. And that the number of mounds, there were 15,400 to scores of the mounds. And that the mounds were built from the sea to the base of the land. In other words, all over the mounds were built. So we decipher this, and I really would say this is a post-Peruvian account because it's my research has shown me that many of the mounds are antediluvian, pre-flood. But post-Peruvian mounds took about 1,500 years to build. 75 cartoons. A cartoon is a score. Closest thing we know to is a score, about a 20-year period. 75 cartoons approximates 1,500 years. It took about 260 years to build one mound, which is 13 cartoons plus 6 years. And there are about 100, the Chilling Bottle Chronicles about 121,000 mounds being built. 15,400s were the scores, plus 1,000 more. 121,000. And where we mention that, all over the land the mounds were built. So now, let's say we want to fast forward up to this time, we call the mound graders. Because those who are working to control the mound, those that are working to control the mind, they have paid a lot of attention to these mounds and this global mound matrix. And really the occult history of the United States is about these cats finding mounds and breeding it. Why? Because we already said the subtler forms the denser. If I want to control someone's mind, I gotta cut off their spirit. So, like I said, these founding fathers, they put a lot of attention into finding these mounds and occupying them, building their edifices and their towers of power on top of these mounds, and then exerting their will throughout the global mound matrix. Y'all with me on that, right? Yeah. All right. So now, who will these mound builders be? They are the founding fathers, the sons of liberty that came out of the Green Dragon Tavern in Boston, and would be known as the Green Dragon Order. So we know there's a lot of different Masonic orders, a lot of different secret societies. You know, it's hard to name all the names, but my science tells me that these are the ones who are the Mound Ridders, the Green Dragon Order. So now, Mound Ridder is someone who can identify an indigenous mound. They can survey, mark, and chart the connecting ley lines that extend from that mound. And they can harness the energy from the earth, the chi, the ley line energy moving through and around that mound for their own will. So let's look at some historical figures. Let's look at some of these mound ridders and get insight into how they worked this thing magically. Okay, so we'll start with Henry Adams. Henry Adams is considered the founder of the New England colonies, also the founder of Boston. One of the first colonists to arrive from Europe. When he came, he got himself 4 years there in Boston and named it the Mounds. Okay, a place called Mount Wollaston. But now the Adams, I have to say, they were very clandestine in their mound grid. So a lot of the evidence around it was circumstantial. But there is something very important about Henry Adams that I think allows us to track the European roots of the mound grid. And that is the memorial, the inscription on his memorial that says, in memory of Henry Adams, who took flight from the dragon persecution in Devonshire, England, and aligned with his 8 sons in Mount Wollaston. So, these dragons of Devonshire, I can't get on deep into it. This is to drop that seed for you to do additional research. But the dragons of Devonshire were the mound ridders in England. Okay? And the story around them, there were actually 2 dragon orders. One that was a white dragon order that had Germanic roots. The other was a red dragon order that had Celtic roots. Initially, they battled one another, but then united and controlled the ley line very collectively. And when we look at the coat of arms of London, we see that collective war, the uniting of the red and the white dragons. Okay? And they would call the mounds that would achieve force moving through the ley lines, they called that the dragons. And then I guess because they controlled it, they called themselves dragons. But also when you see the imagery of the dragon slayer, Mick House slaying the dragon with a rod, sticking deep into the earth. That's another symbol associated with these dragging down rivers. So again, these two orders eventually united. And their unification, they call themselves the Green Dragon Order. But this is just intuitive and open for further research. But I feel like that Green Dragon Order is a code for the Blue Dragon Order, which is the order of the blue blood reptilians that we know are on top of the social hierarchy of this country. Okay? And that's the whole mystery of the red, white, and blue. That you have the red Celtic dragon order uniting with the white Germanic order to create a unified hybrid blue blood American dragon order. So that's again who I think we can identify these guys as. So now let's keep looking at this Adams family. We go to John Adams, who was the great-great-grandson of Henry Adams. Very important family, father of Sons of Liberty. He co-wrote the Declaration of Independence. He was the first vice president, second president. Now, his residence, when he was vice president, he lived here in Philadelphia, which was the capital at that time. He lived in New York City at a place called Mounds Hill. Okay? And we don't have a picture of Rich Mounds Hill, but his wife did include a description of it in a letter. And here it is here, where she describes, a mound intersecting the view of the newly formed New York City and Hudson and Jersey beyond. But now, John Adams' role in Mount Grade, he kind of nationalized the science of Mount Grade through the expansion of transportation and canals. Okay? And again, they kind of think this, that we're going to get into some real, this is some in-your-face Mount Grade, but we start with the Adams family. And then we're going to see out that family by looking at John Quincy Adams, which was John Adams' son, he became the 6th president. Once he completed his terms of office, he made this place, Meridian Hill Park. And if anybody's ever been to Washington, D.C., and been to Meridian Hill Park and knows the significance of Meridian Hill, this is an older photograph of it. And this is the mound that Washington, D.C. is built around. Okay? And this is where John Quincy Adams went to live after he served his term in the White House. And he affirmed those dragon roots of his family by giving a speech as Secretary of State. He proclaimed, Americans should not go abroad and slay dragons they do not understand in the name of spreading democracy. So he's showing like his family, like we down with these dragon orders, So let's get to some over-the-top Mount Grade by looking at Thomas Jefferson and his Meridian Ground Madness. Because Thomas Jefferson was obsessed with mounds and the growth of mountain regions. And many of his surveying and excavation he did as a scientist and researcher. It was all about the mounds. Okay? And his residence was Monticello, which means little mound. And he had a small mound on his property that he scientifically excavated. He cut stratigraphic incision into it and studied it layer by layer. Okay? And so he determined that the mound was created over hundreds of years. We read it in Chilling Bible, it would take about 260 years to make one mound. That it was built over hundreds of years, and that there were thousands of skeletons deposited in this mound. And his conclusions were that the contemporary indigenous of his time, which were the Algonquin, okay, all the Algonquin speakers, that they were the ones responsible for the Mounds, and that the Mounds were considered to notoriety as a sacred burial space to the Algonquins of his time. So now, it was Jefferson who was responsible for naming Meridian Hill, Meridian Hill. And why did he name it Meridian Hill? Because as a son of liberty, he wanted complete autonomy from England, and that included scientific and navigational autonomy, and all nautical Navy movements at that time had to base everything off the prime meridian, the zero meridian. They were doing that mapping and navigating. So Jefferson said, hey, we will make the group of longitude that runs through this map, which is from the prime of the Greenwich meridian, 77 degrees. We're going to make this the prime meridian. So he named this hill Meridian Hill. Okay? So now he learned several things along that prime, what he hoped to be his prime meridian in D.C. He made the stone, he put the stone right here, which is very close to the Washington Monument. This is called Jefferson's Pier. This was the original intended place for the Washington Monument, but the land was too unstable to hold such a large obelisk. If they had put that thing in that, if this was there, that earthquake happened a couple of years ago, the Washington Monument, I would have just come, it would have been like 9/11, the gentleman just come down here, free fall. So, right, got Jefferson's Pier is aligned with that prime meridian, and also the center of the White House, the equestrian statue of Andrew Jackson, and the zero milestone, which is the zero reference point, the 0 point reference for all roads in the United States. All these things are aligned with this prime meridian for Thomas Jefferson. Also, in modern-day Meridian Park, they have an obelisk to mark the exact meridian line, as well as when they memorialized Thomas Jefferson, they put his memorial on this meridian as well. This is some images from Meridian Hill Park, and this is what used to mark the meridian. This galactic reference point, okay, showing where the precession of the equinoxes were at that time. Thus, being able to determine where planet Earth is in relation to the galaxy. So, this was the form of meridian that walked. Also along this meridian is 16th Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., where both the Masonic Temple and Scottish Rite Temple. So you see Thomas Jefferson in this meridian, very significant in the group of Washington, D.C. And, Jefferson wanted to make the new meridian defined by a mound really reveals that the old meridian is the old and current, because we never really make that switch. But the Greenwich meridian was also built atop of the mound, which reaffirms this groundbreaking science was brought to the Americans by this dragon order. Alright, so now let's kind of break it here to Philly, and someone else who openly studied the Mounds, Ben Franklin. So Franklin, just like Jefferson, he openly studied the Mounds. However, he disagreed with Jefferson in terms of who was responsible for the Mounds. Jefferson felt temporarily indigenous, the Algonquin speakers of their time were responsible for the Mounds. Franklin disagreed. He said the Mound Builders were an ancient people and that the Algonquins were just custodians, not creators. I think they were both right. So now, even though Franklin disassociated the Algonquin speakers with the Mound, he still felt that the Mounds were very, very significant. And I think Franklin's relationship to the Mounds are best seen by the emblem of another order that Franklin was initiated into in 1776. And that is the Order of the Nine Sisters. And when we study this, you see it's a temple built into a mound with 9 sisters around it, right? Anybody in Philadelphia knows what's up with this temple built on top of a mound with 9 sisters related to Ben Franklin. Okay? Because the Philadelphia Museum of Art, which is on the Ben Franklin Parkway, it's a museum of art, but it's a temple to the muses. The muses are the 9 sisters of art, music, and culture. Okay? So, the Philadelphia Museum of Art was actually built on top of the most sacred temple mound of Lenape, which we know of today as Fairmount. So Fairmount, when they say the Fairmount Park System, they're talking about the temple mound of the Lenape upon which the Philadelphia Museum of Art was built on. Okay? And of course, with, all of that area is kind of in honor of Ben Franklin. Okay? So now let's talk about this mound a little bit. And here's a picture of it before the art museum was built. This is actually, the picture is actually of the Philadelphia Waterworks, which you get to see the mound in the background. So this mound of the Lenape had a lot of lore and tradition associated with it. Lenape said that this earth mound was so sacred that whatever was done on it or around it, it was done with the full participation of the earth. Okay? So that's why Philadelphia is Shatsumatsu, Lenape, the place where the kings meet, and the land where the elders of humanity live. So in other words, the Algonquin Federation stretching north all the way up to the Wampanoags, going down to the Roanoke and Virginia and Carolinas. All of these Algonquin were federated, and Philadelphia, Shatsumatsu, was their indigenous capital. Why would they be here? Because what they did here, they did with a full participation of the earth. And the Lenape were the grandfathers, the grandparent clan of the Algonquin. That's why Lenape is the place where the elders of humanity dwell. So now, in the 1500s, Swedish merchants settled in Lenape, and they would have solstice bonfires by the sacred earthland. And they began calling this Fire Mounds. When French merchants started coming to the area, they heard about this fabled Fire Mound and called it Montagne des Fields. Excuse my French, I probably tore that out, but y'all get the idea, all right? And so when the English heard from the French merchants about it, they called it Fairmount. And that's how we got the name Fairmount. All right? In 1815, they hollowed out the mound. To house Philadelphia water works. They put large wooden barrels on top, used the gravity to create pressure in the plumbing system. So City Hall originally was a water source. It was a water house. Okay, that's why the water, why you pay the water bill at City Hall even to the day. This is the historical roots of that. And why you can't put no other name on the water bill than who owns that property that's tied into the Philadelphia Water Works. And this would fair amount was made in the reservoir. So in 1928, the museum was built on top of the Funk Water Works and held as a temple to the nine muses. And Ben Franklin was given nomenclature of the whole parkway. Okay? So, just to show you something mystical, and this is something that the local Order of Rosicrucians here in Philadelphia point out with kind of like pride, when they say this is a good thing, but they say that the Mounds started out sacred to the earth from the Lenape, that the Swedes made it a fire god. It became a holder of water under the English, and then finally sealed up as a repository of air element, being a museum, and the muses associated with the air element. So now, what do we expect to do to earn nomenclature of that whole parkway? Franklin Institute, all the things, Egan's over, all that around there. Ben Franklin, his name is really associated with all that. It was Franklin's manipulation of Lenape affairs in 1754 at the House of Congress that earned him the naming of this most sacred part of Philadelphia, because Franklin was able to convince the Haudenosaunee, who had been misnamed the Iroquois, to not ally with the Lenape against the British. That the Haudenosaunee were fighting the French, and Franklin said, hey, if you were align yourselves with the Lenape, we won't align ourselves with the French. You can align with us, and we're all good. But the Haudenosaunee didn't know that Franklin was working with the French also. And so it was a divide and conquer technique that we've heard how to divide and conquer. And so when the Haudenosaunee didn't align with the Lenape that more or less forced their exile out of this land. So now, let's look at some of these edifices that they put on the mountains. Because these mountain bridges, they're deep. Because what they do is the edifices that they put on top of the mountains that they conquered, the edifices will be particularly like disrespectful and offensive and defiling to the ones that they conquered. Okay? But before we even get to the deepest one that's directly related to the Lenape, we gotta look at this statue right here. That now the temple to the muses has two entrances. One for the nose, which is the one when you run up the bottom steps. We don't go through that entrance. Alright? The entrance for warriors is on the back side. And on the back side is this statue. It's called social conscience. And I know there's room for interpretation of art. But when I look at it, this is the creepiest statue I've ever been present in my life. And when you study it, really what it is it's two Nephilim, two giants, two watchers, sucking the life force essence out of two humans, while a third, the next victim, watches helplessly and powerlessly. Okay? So this dude was actually sodomizing this one, hitting him from the back, and he's in pain. Okay? This dude is sucking his essence out from his neck. We know this is where the vampires get you, in your neck. And again, there's a lot of room for interpretation, it's art, but here's another sign. Over this, how many of y'all been, has anyone seen this statue? Creepy. Yeah, it's a creepy look behind on there. So now, they are memorializing Sodom and vampirism with the full participation of the earth. What we do here happens with the full participation of the earth, right? But now the deepest edifice is the question of the statue of George Washington and Eagles Bowl. And what this statue embodies and memorializes is the assassination of the Queen Goddess Ramona, the Queen Goddess of the Lenape. White Chief Tammany, who signed his treaty and the ultimate certification of the Lenape. Okay? So you see, the Lenape are, you know, they're disarmed, they're laying down on their back. All of the indigenous animals just, you know, they're chilling, they're not standing up, they're not on guard. And here you have Goddess Queen Ramona with two colonists approaching her, one with a wreath in one hand, the other tipping his hat, so that they're coming in honor, but they both have cloak badges. Here's an image of the cloak badge. Tipping his hat in one hand, cloak badge in the other. And why did they have to assassinate Goddess Queen Ramona? Because it was the Council of Grandmothers that granted land to Charles. And so there was a cultural clash where the early congressmen would sit down and have rum and talk to the men, smoke tobacco. Come on, Tammany. Tammany's name means easy to talk to. And the tradition of why Tammany is easy to talk to is because he had intercourse with the divine being. But who was he having intercourse with? His wife, who was the Queen Goddess Ramona. She was the ultimate decision maker on who would be granted land. And it was, they were not who had the problem granting land, but I think they were not trying to give up shots and lots, and they weren't trying to give up this piece of land. We're actually on it right now. This, all of what was Penn's Philadelphia, all of this, what happens in Penn's Philadelphia happens with the full participation of the earth. This Freedom Line 2 conference is happening with the full participation of the earth. We want to do it. But they wanted this land, specifically Queen Goddess Ramona was like, nah, I don't want to get this. And they assassinated it. They actually didn't do it with daggers. The research, and I do need to say that this is a reflection of collective research. An elder named Mama Gary Cloudman and a next brother named Uncle Galilee. Us three are the ones who came up with a lot of this information. Okay? But they didn't actually assassinate her with the daggers. They asked to meet her in the Wissahickon at where there was Showing and Wissahickon Creek's meet, and they pushed her over a cliff, which is the very first lovers meet. So, you know, every state has a lovers meet, right? Where some Queen Goddess, indigenous, fell over because of either some sperm love or something, right? Those are the needles in the haystack to hide the first lovers meet, which reveals this third part of how this nation was birthed, the assassination of the Queen Mother. So now there's two other statues near Egan's over, which shows what happened to the Lenape after the assassination. assassination of the Queen Goddess. The renowned woman was left to fend for herself with her child. And the chiefs negotiated the settlement of the sea war. So you see him seated with his pipe, with the colonists towering over him. Okay, so now, why did they just bury this land? Why do they have to have 10 trees? Because what happens here happens with the full participation of the earth. So by having chieftainry sign over the land, they earned privilege because even the earth had to acknowledge the agreement. Now, what we so far? Alright. So now, which we said that this George Washington equestrian statue, they mark a very deep spot. So George Washington is another one of these round rivers. And yeah, we got to call this thing a Commander Geomancer as far as this round river science. We're going to show you why. But I do want to point out before we get into that the first 6 presidents, all of their homes were mounds and identified by name. So George Washington, his home is Mount Vernon in Virginia. John Adams, we mentioned he's in Richmond, New York, his residence. Thomas Jefferson was Monticello, the Little Mound. James Madison, former president, Mount Pilgrim, the Mound of the Pilgrim, where UVA is currently. James Monroe, I'm skipping myself. James Monroe had Monroe Hill. That's where UVA is currently. And then we mentioned that John Quincy Adams lived in Meridian Hill. So you see, George Washington follows this pattern of living on top of the mountain. And here's a picture of Mount Vernon. You see, you got something mystical happening with that circle out there. Alright, so now, Commander Geomancer. Why? And that's connected to where we are right now. So we're about a block from Independence Hall where this nation was birthed, right? And you got right behind Independence Hall, you got a Commodore Barry statue. We're going to talk about the significance of that. But then diagonally across, you got Washington Square. And those that know the history of Philadelphia, Washington Square was one time called Congo Square because it was the first public place that Africans could meet. And the reason why Africans could meet there publicly in Philadelphia is because it was a burial ground. Okay? And there's over 2,000 revolutionary soldiers and free and enslaved Africans buried in Washington Square. And but we're going to focus on these war veterans because these war veterans are actually used as an ancestral army in this control of the global mountain matrix. And George Washington was the commander, Geomancer, General-in-Chief. Okay? So now, Washington Square is also known as the Congregation of the Dead. And in the plaque that honors the 2,000 plus soldiers that were buried there, here's the inscription of it right here. And John Adams, who we said is a Mount River, he visited here and his visit to this Congregation of the Dead has also been inscribed. And at Washington Square, you have a tomb of the unknown soldier, as well as the eternal flame burner. Okay? If y'all want your lunch break, if you want to just check it out, it's like only 2 blocks from here. Okay? So now, why is Washington Square important? And why did they set up the Commander Geomancer there? Because Washington Square is 1 block from the keystone that's on the Stonehenge ley line. Meaning, there's this ley line, so those energy lines that run the planet. There's this ley line that runs from Stonehenge straight down the eastern seaboard of the U.S. So Boston, New York, Philly, D.C., Richmond, Charlotte, Atlanta, all of them are aligned on this major ley line. And the keystone, a hinge is what? A hinge, don't mean. One is those large, monolithic stone structures, but a hinge is also a lock, right? We're in the keystone state. So, I feel on mystical levels, the keystone unlocks that Stonehenge ley line. So that's why those mountain builders came looking for this area. And Washington Square, one block from it. Where is the keystone ley line? Of McLaurin's River. Yeah, because Philadelphia and Philadelphia is a very significant node on the worldwide grid. 6 ley lines converge right here, a couple of blocks from here, where this keystone is. And where is that? The Commodore Bey statue right behind Independence Hall. So this nation was built by a Penn Treaty. Shots and Mounds was granted to the colonists with the full participation of the earth. Then right here, where the 6 ley lines converge in the city, the United States was born with the full participation of the earth. Okay? And the place that marks this ley line convergence is the Commodore Bey statue. Now, it's my understanding it's actually a flat stone somewhere in the earth. That's the exact mark. Commodore Bey statue is just a common reference. Okay? I think it's pointing west maybe? No, maybe southeast. Southeast. It's pointing southeast. So here's an area view of the conversion point. And again, this is one block from where you got George Washington set up as Commander-in-Chief of the Congregation of the Dead. So now, network affixed laid on top of the global matrix is this Congregation of the Dead. And all around the nation, Washington, whether you got a Washington Memorial or a War Memorial or something like that, and like you're studying this like, this looks like kind of an odd place for a war memorial. It's probably a mound. And it's probably a part of this Congregation of the Dead that's been placed on top of the global mound matrix as an ancestral army to keep that spirit under wraps. Okay? So here's a classic example. Anybody familiar with East Falls? This is a war memorial in a residential neighborhood next to a water treatment facility. Strangest place in the world to find a war memorial. It is a pentagram of 5 cannons pointed into the ground. Why would you point 5 cannons in the shape of a pentagram into the ground? The pentagram is inverted because really the front of the memorial, that 5th cannon is behind it. They got an inverted pentagram built with cannons pointing into the earth. Explain that to me. Okay? Here, this is in Richmond, New York. It is a soldier standing on top of a mountain. Okay? And I have a science quiz, maybe my New York friends can help me. John Adams Rich Mound was near Greenwich Village, but I see there's a whole Rich Mound Hill in New York that's in between Queens, and Brooklyn. So I don't know how they became two of them. This is in D.C. This is Fort Stevens. I grew up not far from here. Fort Stevens. This is where Lincoln, the first assassination attempt on Lincoln was here. I think they wanted to spill his blood into this Rayon matrix here at Fort Stevens. And he was saved by someone, yelling at him, "Get out, fool!" But here at Fort Stevens, 84, 12 times 7, 84 Civil War veterans are buried here. And this is another residential neighborhood. This isn't like downtown, Smithsonian area. This is like homes and stores and, things like that. So now, Forks is another thing where they feed this congregation of the dead. This is Fort Worth, only Fort Worth, Philadelphia. You look at it, it's like a pentagram, and a sigil all in one. And they got a living history calendar where every year, and this is where Fort Worth is on the ley lines of the city. So you can see it's on the ley lines of Philadelphia. But every year they have these war reenactments. Okay? And these war reenactments, this feeds that ancestral energy. Okay? It keeps that army of the congregation of the dead strong and vital. Alright? And if you think like gospel is just like tripping and waving stuff, no. Fort Whitman actually profits off of the presence of this congregation of the dead there by having these paranormal Fridays. You can come and experience the ghosts and hang out with the ghosts and hear their voices and feel their presence, So this is a tangible part of this methogeomancy. Okay? And this is ultimately what Columbia, the mystery of Columbia is about, in Washington, D.C. And I'll move real quickly because, Columbia is supposed to be the pivotal name of this country, but it's also an invocation of Virgo. And that Virgo, that name, this will rule beautiful birth. This whole science is around beautiful birth, okay? There's a symbol of Columbia. You see she's sitting on the earth, marking her spot with a pole, okay? And, the Washington Monument is kind of pimped out with a pentagram, and we got this inverted pentagram happening on a grander scale in D.C. And so D.C. is a major trigger point for this geomantic network. And D.C. got a lot of Virgo energy. It was named Columbia. It's on September 9th, which is in Virgo. Banner Stone was laid when Jupiter was in Virgo, the moon was in Virgo, when the White House cornerstone was set, Mercury in December conjunct with Virgo, when the Capitol was laid, and the moon was in Virgo when the Washington Monument was set. So they're using this Virgo energy. This is all about controlling this global round matrix. And that's what Novus Ordo Seclorum is also a reference to that. Alright? So to set this thing up, to free our mind, we gotta tap our spirit. And those who know we have to tap our spirit has done a lot of research, put a lot of time, energy, and effort into controlling the global round matrix, because that is designed for us to easily tap into our spirit. So what do we have to do? We got to free our minds, and our minds will follow. Okay? So we got to first find the minds. Most urban centers are good.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause it right there because I think y'all got the meat of the information. And the reason why I showed that video is because, I couldn't have gone over all that information here in such a short time. I know it would have dragged on, but I wanted to kind of give you a fullness of some of the research I did concerning shots of Amexem and not provoking this land grip. And right now, why they had to start the nation here. Because remember, whatever happens here, it happens with the full participation of the earth. So they manipulated Penn Treaty with the assassination of the Queen Goddess Minola. Chief Tammany, when he granted Penn Treaty, right? Even the earth had to honor the agreement. That's why this country seems to have what they call providence. You can't do no wrong. You know, well, they do the wrong and it goes unchecked. Why? This is because of the mystical, magical dimensions that they went to in founding this nation. So they manipulated Penn Treaty, Queen Goddess, the assassination of the Queen Goddess Winona, and so that statue that's in the front, that's on Egan's Oval, I'm sure everybody's seen it. How do you decipher that thing? That is one of the trickiest statues in the world to decipher. And it actually took several minds to put it all together, right? But that's memorializing the assassination of the Queen Goddess Winona, right? And they didn't, even though in the statue they're holding daggers, she was pushed over the first Lover's Leap, which is in Wissahickon, where the Mashonee and Wissahickon creeks come together, not far from Rittenhouse. The entrance called Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Okay? And so right, Tammany signed over shots of Amexem with the full participation of the earth. Then at where those 6 ley lines converge, they birthed the United States with the full participation of the earth. And so that's the magic in this land, you know? And I know we all feel it on levels. It's muddled because right on top of it, so we know our mounds were sepulchral. Our mounds were where we buried our ancestors, and when we go and connect with our ancestors, we go to the mounds. So what did they do? They put war ancestors, the ancestors of the Revolutionary and Civil Wars, they put on top of our mounds, right? As an ancestral army. They're armed. They got cannons. You know, they're armed. What are we doing with our ancestors? We gotta do more. So, it also shows the connection between Philadelphia and DC. Those mystical dimensions, you know. And the mounds is the key, and I think that's Benjamin Banneker. I think when you look at why Benjamin Banneker? Why did they need? They had all the basic surveying skills. Why did they need Benjamin Banneker? So that they could align. They needed orientation to the global matrix in that land, and that was the key that Banneker offered. All right, so I'm gonna seal it on that note, because I know the brother said, you know, it's time for a break, and I hope that information was well received. This I'm not gonna sell this. This is going to be on YouTube, just free to view, but we just finished it. You know, it just sealed up, so that's why I was a little eager to share it, you know. And I hope it was well received, and thank you. Thank you very much.
That's right, I spoke with a few of y'all before about a trip around Philly. We were going to take a tour of the city. And I just spoke to Rahs about it. After listening and watching, he has quite a bit more information than I did. So the few of us that went on the tour before, me and Rick and a couple other people, that little bit is something I showed y'all. definitely prepared to that. So Rahs is going to lead the tour for us.
Yes.
So we'll get it set up.
Yeah.
We'll get it set up. And once it gets warm outside, we at it. So we're going to probably get, depending on how many people sign up, because we're going to have to sign up. I'm going to have to know who's going. And we'll just rent a couple 15 passenger buses because we can't possibly walk to all these different locations in the city. So get ready for that. That'll be coming up as soon as me and him sit down and set it up. I'll let y'all know. We're going to take a little 10-minute break, and then we'll get right back at it. Peace. Islam, everybody.
Islam.
Once again, I'd like to request the permission of the elders to speak. For the new faces who don't know me, my name is SetenRa Bey. Today we're going to discuss the right to travel, police oaths, and some USC codes and things of that nature. How many people in here, just by show of hands, are familiar with the right to travel? How many people in here have driver's licenses? Practically everybody. Now, another show of hands. How many of y'all get paid to drive? I get paid to drive. One more time. Everybody who gets paid to drive. 1, 2, 3, including myself, 4. Now, one more time. Everybody who has a driver's license. A driver is someone who gets paid to drive, engaged in commerce. Engaged in commerce. So everybody who has a driver's license, technically you should be getting paid because you have a driver's license. A driver is an occupation. So we're going to review the right to travel against the right to travel against the driver's license. And then we'll go into a little bit of police oaths, USC codes, and things like that. Let's review the right to travel against the privilege to drive. The right to travel. The right to travel is an inalienable right that every natural living person has. Inalienable rights are not subject to alienation. The characteristic of those things which cannot be bought, sold, or transferred from one person to another. That's from the Black's Law Dictionary. Everybody clear on what alienable rights are, unalienable rights. That means that it can't be taken from you. That means that you can't say, all right, here, I give it up. It's your birthright. Everybody clear on that?
Yeah.
All right. Travel. Make a journey typical of some length or abroad. That's from Google. Because I know everybody here don't have Black's Law dictionaries. So I know if I say go look something up, the first thing y'all gonna do is go run to Google. As opposed to going to Google and pulling up a law dictionary and then looking it up. That's why I put the definition from Google and I put the definition from the Black's Law. In Black's Law, to go from one place to another at a distance. It's a journey, spoken or voluntary chance of place. Now, each one of y'all, including myself, we all traveled from wherever we were to this place this moment. If you say you drove, as opposed to travel, then you should have been paid for driving over. You don't follow me? Am I losing anybody? See, what we're doing is we're comparing driving against travel. You travel there. So if right now we all get up and we leave and we all walk together out the door and up the street to get something to eat, then we travel. We didn't drive, we walked, or we traveled. So it doesn't matter the mode, whether you're on foot, whether you're on a pedal bike, whether you're in a conveyance, a car, or however, you're traveling. Traveler, a person who is traveling or often traveling, it's the Google definition. Black's Law, one who passes from place to place, whether for pleasure, business, or otherwise. We just talking about. Wherever you go, you just travel. You're not driving. You gotta understand, we talk about this all the time, wordplay. Because, eventually, you're gonna get stopped.
Right.
And if you're gonna stand on your square, you're gonna stand on principles. You need to know this type of stuff. You need to know that they're gonna say stuff to try to drag you back out of where you are. Out of the constitutional code of government back into their jurisdiction. So So as soon as you say, yeah, I drove, then they got you. No, I'm traveling. What is a privilege? Special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group of people. And that's from Google. From Black's law, for addition, particular or peculiar benefit or advantage enjoyed by a person, company, or class beyond the common advantages of other citizens. So they tell you got the privilege to drive. That's what your driver's license is, your identification that gives you the privilege to drive. How many of y'all got the right to drive? Raise your hands. Now, I seen a couple hands go back down. I seen a couple hands go back down. Now, you have the right to drive. In the case as is myself, my brother sitting over here, we have commercial vehicles. And we have the right to engage in commerce, so we have the right to drive. I said that to trick y'all, because I wanted to see who was going to raise their hands talking about their driver's license in their cars. So I'll clear it up. People who have commercial vehicles, who drive tractor trailers, myself, Brother Rockin and James, where they is back there, we have commercial vehicles. And yes, we do have the right to drive. But as for y'all don't have the right to drive. You don't need the right to drive. You got the right to travel. Unless you feel like, all right, then I need to make some extra fee out or some extra finance, and you're going to use your personal vehicle. All right, then you become a driver. Limousine driver, bus driver, however, they all say driver. They're all occupation. All right? These are some privileges that they tell y'all got. This one on the left, probably can't see it too good. That one's a little fuzzy too. This is a contractor's license. So you got the privilege through them to build houses or build boats or whatever you want to build, whatever a contractor does. You got the privilege to do that. Over here is the certificate of marriage. They give you the privilege to say to your woman, I love you and I'm going to take care of you for the rest of your life. They give you the privilege to do that. This is cosmetology. So if you feel like I want to be a barber or I want to be a hairstylist, you got to get the privilege from them. You got to get the privilege from them to do that. Because if they come in, you don't have your cosmetology license hanging up, they're going to try to shut your shop. Privilege. Not liberties, not rights, not birthrights. We're talking about privileges that they give y'all. Now, call me crazy, but I think y'all got the right to do what y'all want.
Right.
Am I crazy? No. Somebody talk to me. Y'all know I like to hear myself back. I ain't just gonna be sitting here talking to y'all all day and y'all not just talking back. There was some more privileges right there. So let's just say I'm starving. I don't have no food in the house, but I got a 30-30. That's a rifle for people who don't know. And I go get my man right here. My man right here and say, listen, y'all, I'm hungry. Let's go get some deer. I don't eat there, but it was good, but I don't eat it no more. But if I say let's go get some deer, we should be able to just go out into the woods, ambush a couple of them, shoot them, and eat. But we can't. Because they got that. The Pennsylvania Game Commission resident hunting license. The Pennsylvania fishing license. You telling me I can't even take a pole and go down to the river and drop it in the river and get something to eat? I don't have the liberty to do that. All of this ties into one thing. Status. Status. Status is extremely important. I know some people blow it off and they'll tell y'all, you don't need your master. You don't need this, you don't need that. But the bottom line is, I'm nationalized. Just by show hands, how many people nationalized? Y'all need them fishing licenses? No. Driver's license, what is it? It's a fraudulent instrument handed out by all corporate states to attract people. It's a surety for the corporate states. It's an invitation to do business with the corporate states. How many corporate states?
50.
50. 50 different driver's licenses, 50 different hunting licenses. All they, for what?
Yeah.
Fiat. That's why you gotta renew it every 4 years. It's all about fiat. It's all about commerce. I don't know about the hunting license and the fishing license, how often it has to be renewed, but I know it's gotta be renewed. You think if I've been fishing for these 2 years, I forgot how to do it, why I gotta renew the license? If I've been hunting deer all this time, why I gotta renew the license for? I'm still me. I shot him last year, I'll shoot him this year. It's all about commerce. It's all about commerce. That's all these don't ever forget that everything, when you're dealing with these colonies, these corporate states, it's all about fiat. Everything. You got to pay for each one of those licenses we just looked at, the marriage license, you got to pay for all of them. You got to pay for all of them. You got to pay to get permission to do something. How much sense that make? I never had intentions on getting married through the corporation. And I'm not talking about because of what I know now. This was long before I knew anything about any of this stuff. It just didn't make sense to me that I got to go to him and say, hey, listen, man, I really like her. It's all right if we get married. And I got to wait for his response. And then when I realized that I don't like her no more, I got to go to him and say, listen, man, she makes me sick. Can you cut us loose? That never made sense to me, even before I had any of this information, any of this knowledge. That never made sense to me. It should have never made sense to anybody, but that's what's going on.
Do you know, SetenRa, when they do cut you loose, it's still a contract? When people get divorced, they only alter the contract. They really are talking.
Yeah, see that? See that? They got you in life. You know, you got a life, you got a birth certificate that's on file with them. Your death certificate on file with them. I tell y'all what I found out that really threw me for a loop. You know, if somebody has a stillborn, that has got a birth and a death certificate.
Yeah.
I had a baby in 2 days. I got a birth certificate and a death certificate. And then they forced me to file taxes.
Yeah, the sister said, just so y'all know, I got this microphone right here if anybody want to ask questions. So this way the question can be heard on camera. But what she said was, she had a child, and the child lived 2 days. She had a birth certificate and a death certificate. And they made her file taxes for 2 days. For 2 days.
They said because as soon as he took his first breath,
as soon as he took his first death, so as soon as, this is what you got to understand. Yeah, I don't know how much are you familiar with the birth certificate and how it operates?
I just know I
All
got one.
I know some people here, but I'm gonna brief her just so she understands, y'all. The birth certificate is a contract. As soon as you file that birth certificate and you sign the back of it, you just practically gave that child.
I didn't.
You filed for it, right?
I didn't sign anything.
Did you file for it?
No, it came to me in the mail. Like they came to me in the mail.
And what you do with it when it came in the mail?
I kept it.
You kept it. So you never sent it back.
I know, you know the papers that they give you once you give birth and you fill out.
Right.
They gave me their packet, but I was so distraught. I left all that. I don't even know where that stuff is.
Did you file the taxes?
They made me file taxes.
They can't.
And then I filed the taxes off of. They sent me a card with baby boy all on it. But I named them. I gave them name. You know, I named them and everything. But I never filled out none of those papers that they give you at the hospital. They just sent me a birth certificate, and then when tax season came, I was not going to do that. I felt like that was scamming or something.
Well, it's scamming on the highest level.
Exactly why. They told me that I would get a fine if I didn't file taxes.
Y'all know if you have a child and they try to offer you a birth certificate, you don't have to take it. They'll tell you you have to, but you don't. They can't force you to do anything. If any of y'all go through that situation, you can just simply say, I haven't named my child yet. If you haven't named it, then you can't file a birth certificate. If you get scared and you start your knees get to tapping, just simply, I have not named my child yet. They're going to do exactly what they did to her. They're going to mail you one. They're going to mail your birth certificate. Now, if you send it back, if you fill it out and send it back, then don't be mad. You just gave your child to the state. Don't be mad. Please, bro.
Excuse me, I just had a daughter and I never signed her birth certificate at all. I came home with it, but they still want to send me one in the mail. How do I go about that?
If they send you one in the mail,
Yes, they said they still want to send one, even though.
yeah, they gonna send it. That's what I was saying. When they send it, it's right.
But the mother.
If
That's for the father.
Yeah, my name ain't on it, it's gonna be
The
her.
mother's name on your automatic.
I know why.
yeah, because the mother is the one who serves.
But I just want to take my baby in there. That's all I want to do. They just want me to do.
If they send you a contract and you don't refuse it, it's like passive aggressive. You know, you agree with it.
If you don't agree with it, so forgive me for saying shred
They
it.
don't shred it.
Rick is correct. When they send it to you,
Yeah.
when they send it to you,
Inside
you refuse it.
for fraud.
Refuse for fraud. Write it in the left-hand corner on the 45-degree angle across the page in red, and send it back, because it's a contract. When they send these contracts out, whether it be jury duty or whatever it be, write on it, refuse for fraud, and send it back. Do not consent. And then you sign it. Heir to the land, or robbery. All right, before we go there, I don't want to get too far from the list, because we're not supposed to be on birth certificates and stuff. And we're on the time limit, so we'll get to that after this. All right? Then we got pictures of driver's licenses. Y'all might recognize y'all corporate state up there. It's all about finance, though. Every 4 years you get another one. And just to prove it's about finance. How much? Just anybody who got a renewed PA driver's license recently, how much is it?
It just went up. I read it just went up.
It's like $27.50. Now for a commercial license, I have a commercial license. It's 92. It's 92 though. Now my commercial driver's license looks just like a regular driver's license, but it's 92 notes against 27. That's all about counting, y'all. As they say, a driver's license means a license issued by a state to an individual, authorizing an individual to operate a motor vehicle on the highways. A motor vehicle will be a tractor that you use for farm equipment, will be a motor vehicle. Now, I don't know how many of y'all travel out to like Lancaster County or anything like that, where they actually be driving these vehicles up and down the road. That's a motor vehicle, but it doesn't have any registration. It don't have a license plate on it, and you don't need a driver's license to operate it. But that's what they just set up there. That's what PennDOT site right there, renewing your commercial driver's license. I put that up there. Y'all can go to the site and pull it up, but I put it up there for one reason. I want y'all to read what's in right. Somebody read it out loud.
Invitation.
What's the key word?
Invitation.
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 All right.
They send you an invitation to renew. So if I send you an invitation to a party and you don't want to come, what you do? Refuse it. That's from their website. Receive step one, receive an invitation to renew, a DL58A, DL-58A, or obtain form DL143CD, an invitation to renew. I was at a military graduation Thursday morning, and I watched all these types of vehicles being driven by different soldiers. And just by showing hands, any veterans in here, anybody who was actually in the military? Did any of y'all drive any of these types of vehicles? Did any of y'all have a license to drive any of these vehicles? Now, you get certified through the military to drive that because those are them big trucks. And even though you got a license to drive those, that semi right there, that tank, that big old cage, and that one down bottom, do you know they still can't come out here and drive? They still can't come out here and operate a vehicle. They still got to get a corporate driver's license. Now, if I'm licensed to drive that semi, that truck, that tank, and that truck up there, why can't I drive it?
Yeah, for the government, you can't drive statewide.
But now they making it represent, because I just got out last February, and I had to drive a tractor on a flight that, but now they're making it that you have to have your state's driver's license, and then you get the certification from them.
Yeah, see, they changing it now, 214. How long the Army been running? How long the Army been running? They've been driving, they've been operating those vehicles They get paid to drive and they drive. Semi-trucks, tanks, and everything else. And they can't come out here and get in a personal vehicle and travel from place to place.
Yeah.
It's commerce. What is a driver? A person who drives a vehicle. That's what Google tells us. Y'all see the difference in what you get from Google and what you get from the Black's Law? When if you want to look something up, cool, go to Google, type in law dictionary. Even if a lot of times you'll get one from Cornell University, I think it is. Go to the law dictionary and look some of this stuff up. It's good to look up this definition because you need to know that too. One employed in conducting or operating a coach, carriage, wagon, or other vehicle with horses, mules, or other animals, or a bicycle, tricycle, or motor car, though not a street car. A person actually doing driving, whether employed by an owner to drive or driving his own vehicle. It's a case law at the bottom for y'all to go check it out. Wallace versus Woods, 340 MO, period, 452, 102, S.W.2D, 91, 97. Write it down and read it. All of these case laws out here, be your friend. Read them and understand them. Let's read Title 49, USC. Subtitle 6, Part B, Chapter 313. Actually, I needed to pull that up on here. Somebody who has a smartphone, pull that up for me, please. Title 49, USC. Just pull it up from there, and I'll navigate it from there. But that title, that USC title is talking about transportation. It's talking about the driver's license. It's talking about the commercial driver's license. Don't say nothing of it now. It's talking about transportation, but it don't say nothing about the regular license. It's commerce. Somebody get that for me. Pull it back up in case y'all forgot what it is. Title 49. I'll navigate the rest. I just want y'all to be clear on what driving is and what traveling is. That's why it took me right to Cornell University. Yeah, y'all remember that. If y'all don't have Black's Law dictionaries, get one. But in the meantime, you can get one. You can see Brother Nabi, sit back there, there he is back there. See Brother Nabi about that Black's Law. You got a bootleg phone. It's not coming up. Somebody else pull that up for me, please. If you just pull up Title 49, I can navigate it from there. Y'all forgive me for this. I'm usually prepared. I got it right there. You got it?
49 HVAC.
My man. All right, so when you go to Part B, when you pull up Title 49, you go to Subtitle 6. Then go to Part B, and then hit Chapter 313. It says commercial motor vehicles. Once you get there, it'll actually start to tell you, you start reading, and it lists everything. It lists what a driver is. A driver is one who's employed to drive. It lists what an employer is and who an employer is. An employer being a government entity. Corporation, or corporate state. I'm not getting what I need. Y'all write that title down. Y'all forgive me for not having that ready for y'all. But y'all write that down and please look it up. That's Title 49. That's Title 49, Subtitle 6, Part B, chapter 313. Write that down and research it. And find out who the driver is. Find out who a driver is. And find out who needs a driver's license. Y'all got that? Can I move on? Don't worry about it. We'll move on. Everybody got it? Can I move on? Yeah. All right. So the question I had after looking at Title 49 was if a driver is someone who gets finances for driving because it's their job, therefore requiring them to have a driver's license to work because they are being financed and are now involved in commerce, why is the driver's license forced upon everyone if their occupation is not that of a driver? Y'all write this down too. 49 USC 31301. Again, y'all forgive me for not having Title 49 ready. Under 49 USC 31301, an employee means an operator of a commercial vehicle, including an independent contractor when operating a commercial motor vehicle who is employed by an employer. Now, if you just read that, you would think an employer probably would be whoever you work for, meaning McDonald's or somebody like that, if you was going to do deliveries or something like that. An employer means a person, including the United States government, a state, or political subdivision of a state, that owns or leases a commercial motor vehicle or assigns employees to operate a commercial motor vehicle. This is all about driving, y'all. It's not about traveling. This is about driving. As I said, when you get in your own personal conveyance and leave here, you're traveling. You're not driving. You gotta understand that driving is commercial. It's all commerce. I'm a driver. My man's a driver. He's a driver. If you're not getting paid for it, excuse me, you ain't getting paid. If you're not getting financed for it, then you're not a driver. A license, a permit from an authority to own or use something, do a particular thing, or carry on a trade, that's removed. A license from the Black's Law 4th edition, a certificate or the document itself which gives permission. You only get permission from an authority. Those definitions don't really say much different. You only get permission from an authority. Now, for the sister back there who lost a child, if you had gotten a birth certificate, then the corporate state would have then been the authority over that child, not you. Because of that birth certificate, because of those driver's licenses, because of the marriage licenses, they are the authority. And that's why you have to get permission from them to do these things, to fish, to hunt, to travel, what some people call driving. All right? All goes back to status. I just put a list of things up there that you might need to get a license for the corporate state: marriage, hunting, fishing, driving, barber, stylist, vendor, insurance agent, daycare provider, mortician, contractor, etc. All those things you should be able to do just because you feel like it. There are a ton of case laws that prove you don't need a driver's license to operate your personal conveyance. There are also case laws that say you don't have to have a state-issued license plate or have insurance forced upon you. These are United States Supreme Court rulings. Remember, once the United States Supreme Court rules, it is said and done. Everybody clear on that? If the Supreme Court decides, that's it. It's a document that talks about stuff like that. They say there can be no ex post facto laws. What document is that?
Constitution.
Constitution. The Constitution preceded by what?
Treaty.
What treaty?
1787.
1789.
Once the matter's been decided upon, that's it. Now, if you already had the right to travel, if you already had the right to cut hair or do hair, or you already had the right to fish, and you already had the right to go hunting for whatever it is you needed to hunt for so you can eat, long before the Constitution was written, and the Constitution protects those rights. How is it that the corporate state comes around 100 or so years later and tells you that you got to do this type of stuff? Question?
What treaty is
The Treaty of Peace and Friendship?
Pardon?
The Treaty of Peace and Friendship?
Peace and friendship?
Right.
Thank you.
You never heard of it?
Well, I have to research.
Just on a quick side note, let me tell y'all this. We normally have class on the first and third Saturdays, but we actually want to have it next Saturday, the second Saturday, because of Sister Fatima Hill's memorial service on the third Saturday. So we're going to have it next Saturday, and you make sure you come because the class next Saturday is going to be on the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and the Constitution. Now, there's books back there. I know Taj had a couple, and I know Raj has a couple. On the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, grab one of them, read it, because it's got the treaty and the Constitution in it. So when I see you next week and I ask you a question, you can answer it. Res judicata, a matter adjudged, a thing judicially acted upon or decided. When it's already said and done, it's said and done. But if you don't know anything about any of these Supreme Court rulings, if you don't know anything about what the Constitution actually protects, you ain't gonna go to none of it. You ain't gonna refer to none of it. You can go to R.B. Bey, and Rahs got a whole list of stuff on there, a whole list of case laws that say you have the right to travel, that you don't need a license plate, that you don't need insurance. Now remember, I told y'all status is important, so if your status is that of a corporate citizen, and you go trying to fight these fights, you're gonna have a real hard time. Because of the corporate status, you still belong to them. The right of a citizen to travel upon public highways and to transport one's property thereon, either by carriage or automobile, is not a mere privilege, which a city may prohibit or permit at will, but a common right which she has under the right of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's Thompson versus Smith, 154 SC 579. I'm not gonna read all these, y'all write some of them down. If you got a camera phone, walk up there, take a picture. But read it. Read it. No state shall convert a liberty into a privilege, license it, and attach a fee to it. So when they tell you gotta register your car, they just went against that. They just went against that. So if you don't register your vehicle, and then you go to the magistrate's office and you going back and forth with him and he's saying, all right, you got this fine, that fine, and this fine, you can simply refer to that. You can simply refer to that. All of this stuff you need to be strong. I'm not saying you need to know it verbatim, but when you need it, you need to know where to go look. And if you're saying I'm a more nationalized and this and that, it's gonna come a day when you're gonna need it. And you're gonna need to be able to stand on your square. If you can't, it's gonna eat you up. Even the legislature has no power to deny citizens the right to travel upon the highway. Somebody's taking a picture. You want me to go back? Yeah. All right, let me read this. I'll go back there. Even the legislature has no power to deny a citizen the right to travel upon the highway and transport his property in the ordinary course of his business or pleasure, though this right may be regulated in accordance with public interest and convenience. Chicago Motor Coach for Chicago 169 McNeil. Go back so y'all can get a picture of the case law. My reason for showing y'all all of this is so that you're clear. That it's just not me saying it, that it's just not Rahs saying it, or Ms. Raheem, or Taj, or anybody else. It's written for you. It's already been decided upon. It's written for you. It's already been decided upon, which means they can't go back and change it. When the Supreme Court puts its foot down, that's it. It's almost like when you're a father and your children running around saying, can I have some ice cream, can I have some ice cream, and you get fed up, and you put your foot down and say no. They know. They ain't getting no ice cream. Stop giving them ice cream. The foot is already there. It's It's already there. Stop getting as hard as it is for those of us in law enforcement, y'all forgive me for us, I was just copying and pasting, and I was rushing. Because, you know, as hard as it is for those of us in law enforcement to believe, there is no room for speculation in these court decisions. The American citizen does indeed have the inalienable right to use the roadways unrestricted in a manner as long as they are not damaging or violating property rights of another. Anybody see anything in there that stands out?
Yes.
Put your hand down. You put your hand down. And I know you saw it. Yeah. I know you saw it. What I'm saying is what I just read, I'm gonna read it again. As hard as it is for those of us in law enforcement to believe, there is no room for speculation in these court decisions. The American citizen does indeed have an inalienable right to use the roadways unrestricted in any manner as long as they are not damaging or violating the property or rights of another. Anybody see anything strange in that paragraph? What you see?
We just talked about needing a license for business.
Right.
That says business.
That's not it. Anybody else? Speak to me.
Hand the microphone out.
It says American citizens.
Come up here. This my man. Come on. Come talk to me.
What I noticed was it said American
Take the mic, bro.
citizens. You know, they always talking about being U.S., but it says American citizen
Into the mic.
does indeed have the inevitable right, but not the U.S. citizen.
Who's American citizen?
We are American. And the American citizen has an inevitable right, because that comes from nationality and birthright. But a U.S. citizen is a corporate or a privilege for them to use, so they use a license, and therefore we do not. So we were here before all that. Amen.
Everybody should have saw it. Everybody who's conscious should have saw it. I couldn't point it out, and I know he saw it because his hand went right up as soon as I said it, or as soon as he read it. But y'all need to see that. Y'all need to know the difference. Y'all need to know the difference in an American and a U.S. citizen. Anybody not clear? Somebody talk to me. If you're not, please raise your hand. You're not clear?
I just want to make a statement.
Okay.
By my mother's telling me my lineage, my mother's side, Cherokee, and knowing that my people from the North Carolina foothills, right, Cherokee Nation. I always had the mindset that I was more American than these people that call themselves telling me what to do. You know, right now when I look at them, I don't see you as American, I see you as an invader. You're a European in my land telling me what to do.
Absolutely. That's just your ancestors talking to you, bro. Earlier when I was talking to y'all, and you said to me, how do I know? How do I reconnect with the ancestors and things like that? Your ancestors talk to you all the time. Don't be scared. Sometimes you hear little voices. Sometimes you get that little feeling in your gut. You might be ready to go ahead, and something might tell you to stop. It might be your grandmother might have made sure because she might have been the one to reach out and grab you. When your ancestors talk, listen. When your ancestors talk, listen. You wasn't having that feeling for no reason. And you're not sitting here by accident. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it just takes a little longer for some people to get the way they need to be than others. Right. You know what I'm saying? There's just a couple more case laws. Where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no ruling making legislation which will abrogate them. Is that in the Constitution? Somebody tell you, none of y'all read the Constitution?
Yes, it's in there.
Wait till next week. There's just a couple more of them up there. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of the exercise of their constitutional rights. So if you just exercising, if you just traveling, they can't get mad and say, all right, well, you don't have our corporate driver's license, so hey, we're going to write you $1.5 million notes and fines, and we're going to take your conveyance. If they took an oath to the Constitution and they just broke it, and anytime you break an oath, it's punishable by what?
Yeah.
Death. So why is it that every time they break their oaths, you He's talking about magistrates, policy enforcers, and everybody else who breaks the code. I can still walk in the street. And I don't get me wrong, because I gotta be putting these disclaimers out. I'm not saying take a 45. Ain't gonna see him. I'm saying it's a lawful process. Not legal,
Law,
the lawful process. So when you cross a policy enforcer or highwayman, you should undoubtedly know that your liberties, what your liberties are, and be able to enforce them. I put your definitions up here: policy enforcer, police who are hired to enforce policies. Now, that word actually was officer, but we know that they're not officers because they haven't been elected to any official offices. So we put what they are, they're policy enforcers. Police who are hired to enforce the policies, statutes, codes, ordinances of the corporation, being the U.S. colonies, municipalities, etc. The highwayman, Bey, one who robs travelers upon the highway. That's from Black's Law. Peace.
That's what they are. Soon as they stop people and claim to be officers, they're not only robbing them, they're imposters.
Yeah. Y'all playing on it. That's what they're doing. They robbing you. They robbing you. I don't know if any of y'all ever been stopped by a policy enforcer, and they actually drew their weapon. That's a sticker. Give me your driver's license. Give me your registration. That's a sticker. Now wait till we get a little further in the lesson and find out what can be done about that time. If we just read that you don't have to have tags or registration, why do the states force you to have it? Once you register your conveyance, your car, colony, state, or corporation, it becomes theirs. They make it a part of their trust, and it becomes security for the corporation. Anybody unclear on it?
Once you register your car, it's theirs. It's no longer yours.
When you get your car, say like I sell you a used car today, and I give you the certificate of title. What you gonna do with it?
Once you register, you got to register.
No, I'm asking you what are you going to do? So you're going to take it and get it registered, right? All right. So if today you come to my house and you say, man, I like that TV, and I say, you know what, give me 50 notes for it, and you take it, and I give you all the papers that came with the TV, I give you the nice little box and all the cushions, and you take it home, what you going to do? Why you not registered? Huh? Why you not registered? You're supposed to register. You bought it from me. I sold it. You're supposed to register, right?
Why you have to register?
Well, why are you registering your car? It's not the law. It's a statute. It's a code. It's an ordinance. It's not a law. They tell you it's a law. And because when you don't study law, when you don't know what the sure law is, then you assume that the statutes, the codes, and the ordinances are law. But they're not. They're not. You don't have to register your car. You choose to register your car. If I sell you my TV, if I sell you anything, you just take it on in the house and you do what you're going to do with it. The same thing with your weapons. If you buy a rifle or if you buy a handgun, what you do? You register with the state. It's theirs. Why do you think they're saying we coming to take it? Because we want our guns back. So now, if he comes over and he say, hey man, you know, it's a nice pistol, can I buy it? And I sell it to him, we can simply write a bill of sale. We can get him to witness it and get her to witness it. It's a lawful document. So if I had killed 20 people already, and they catch him with that gun, he'd say, oh. April 5th, I bought this from SetenRa Bey. So everybody that was murdered before this date, because I got this contract right here that say I bought it on this date. It's all on him. You don't have to register no weapon. You don't have to register your car. You do it because they tell you.
You don't do it, and you take your car.
If you don't do it, and they're gonna take your car.
Get out my car. Get out of their car and take your car.
Oh yeah, they're gonna take you. You know what? For one thing, your status ain't correct, and two, you don't know that. So once you study this, once you study law, once you understand what the jure law is, your chest get a little bigger, and you need to know push-ups. You know what I'm saying? Your chest just gets swelled up. You know why? Because of confidence. Because of confidence. How do you enforce it?
safety status, how do I enforce that?
I didn't hear you. Say that
How
again.
do I enforce that?
What did you say about this? Can y'all keep it down? I can't hear it, brother.
They come to me and say, you don't have no registration, you don't have no insurance, you take my car. And I say, no, you're not, how do I enforce what I'm saying? But I'm not.
This is what I'm gonna tell you. This is what I'm gonna tell you, because I can easily stand here and tell you what to say. But what I'm gonna tell you is this.